Hey everyone, and welcome to another Mount Blade Warband Mods of the Week. I believe this is week 7, and we have again some interesting mods that have come out. Though, overall I have to say that it does feel that the amount of mods coming out is wavering a little bit. Maybe the hype of the release of the game has now fallen down a bit to where some who bought it have moved on to other games. Nevertheless, I'm sure it will receive a massive resurgence again once the proper mod tools will be released and we will have our proper total conversion mods. Despite the decrease in releases, there are still some really cool mods that can add to your immersion and gameplay experience. Before we take a look at the list for this week, I would like to remind you to please also check out my gaming review channel you can find in the description down below. I review video games, both old and new, pretty frequently there, and you can even request certain games to be reviewed. If you like what you see, then please subscribe to the Kaszniam Reviews channel, as it helps me out a lot. Thanks so much if you do. And then, without further delay, let's get into the mods. For the first mod of the week, we have the Blood mod, and in a sense, I'm actually surprised that we got a Decapitation mod before the Blood mods for Bannerlord were even released. Blood mods are a well-known phenomenon in many other games, mostly shooters, where new blood decals and sprays are added. Some make it look more realistic, and then there are some that go for extra gore or blood to make it feel very over the top and unrealistic. This Blood mod adds a lot more blood to the battlefield, but the weird thing is that it doesn't feel unrealistic at all. When thinking about melee combat with swords and spears, the wounds that are inflicted during battle are absolutely horrid. Arms and legs get cut off, or people are beheaded or punctured with a sword. The resulting blood loss must have been immense and a lot in a very short time. That is why the resulting visual spectacle of all the bodies lying there soaked in blood might actually be pretty accurate to how it was back then, especially with units that did not wear a lot of armor. I can definitely recommend this mod, and would be a perfect one to combine with some mods like the Dismemberment mod to make that feel all the more accurate. This really gets that feeling of Game of Thrones or Braveheart across, so a big plus in my book. Then for our next mod, we have the Breakable Shields, which does exactly what the title suggests. It makes the shields easier to break. The shields in Bannerlord have been made a lot sturdier than in Warband, where some of them felt like they were made out of cardboard. Now shields of course did not split apart like that in real life, and so I really appreciated that they were made sturdier in Bannerlord, and I loved the addition of having to block at an angle to make it still challenging to use without having the shield be too overpowered. But with this mod, you can get that feeling back a little bit of Warband, though still in my opinion, Warband shields will break faster than this. This makes it to where you can block for quite a while, but there is building pressure to play a more attacking stance since your shield is less durable. Some might really like that feeling of nostalgia towards Warband with this mod, but is it immersive? Not all that much. It will make battles a lot more frantic though, which of course can be seen as a good thing. Then we arrive at another slow motion mod. Previously, we have had of course slow motion mods for whenever you needed to issue an order to your troops, but there are other functions and situations where slow motion could be useful. For example, whenever you fire an arrow at the enemy. That is exactly what the Deadshot mod delivers. This highly customizable mod adds slow motion whenever you aim an arrow at the enemy, giving you more than enough time to get that perfect headshot. As I said, it is highly customizable, meaning you can adjust just how much percent it will slow down, being able to really almost create a bullet time effect if slowed down enough. You can also set it to where the slow motion effect only occurs whenever you zoom in, creating a more focused perspective. It might feel a bit arcadey to some people, but it could also help those who are new to the bow shooting to get the timing right whenever you want to switch back to real time. It can be seen for those as a practice mode maybe, or for a focused aim like you have in a lot of sniper games. I think it's a very interesting mod, and I'm glad to see another situation that paired well with the notion of slow motion. Next up, we have Kaszniam's training mod. The training of your troops is as important as ever, and though I like the system in Warband, it does work quite different in Bannerlord. With this mod, you can add some extra training to your troops in a more realistic way. Whenever you are at a castle town with an arena, you have the choice to have your troops train there. This of course would be a more realistic scenario than to train while traveling. Sure, while at the camp or something, there can be some training, but it does add to the immersion to have your troops train whenever you are near a proper arena. It did actually make me think if it would be possible to evolve this mod into even having them fight to the death, in essence creating a gladiator mode where you let some of your best troops fight for high wages. It's obviously not the intent of this mod, but having my troops train in the arena did really give me that feeling of managing a bunch of gladiators. It should be said that right at the end of writing this episode, I actually did discover a gladiator mod out there that hopes to add these same features in future updates, so I will probably talk about that mod in next week's episode. Finally, we have the Hideout Roster Mod, which hopes to improve hideout battles a little bit more. In the very first episode, we talked about the hideout limit remover, so you could attack hideouts with your entire giant army. Very cool, and of course also a bit more believable, but it made the gameplay incredibly easy, due to the few enemies you were facing. In that regard, the Hideout Roster mod tries to improve on it while still keeping the gameplay in mind. With the roster, you can simply choose which units will fight beside you during the hideout battle. This way you can specifically choose your strongest units or omit those you want to surely keep safe. By adhering to the limit, you can still make it a bit easier for yourself by selecting your own troops, but never find yourself in such an advantage where you have 10 times the amount of troops as the enemy. It makes the overall experience better, and I probably would prefer this over the limit remover, since in my opinion, that mod makes the hideout battles obsolete. And with that, we have come to another end of mods of the week. There are definitely some really cool mods that have been released, and even implementations like the Hideout Roster or the Blood mod that I would recommend for your own vanilla experience. It's great to see solutions and new ways to improve on points that many didn't even think about needing a fix. I'm very curious what the modding scene will look like until the mod tools are properly released, but as it stands now, I'm sure that next week's episode will have plenty of awesome mods to discuss again. As always, if you notice an awesome mod that you think deserves a look at in this weekly series, then please leave it in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, hope you all liked this week's episode, and I will see you all next week.